every day. Yeah.
Sell grandma's house. Welcome back to the $100,000 to $1 million public account series. We had a pretty flat day today, up $400, no big deal. That brings our month to $30,000, almost $31,000. That's an insane bounce from Q2. And the cool part about momentum trading and this sort of trading is that you can take a step up, take a break, take a step up, take a break. Look at the cash position and went down a little bit. We did some buy-in, okay? It's exciting times. We're pivoting into our new push, and that's how we're able to accelerate some crazy gains, which is going to lead us perfectly into what we're talking about today. So what I wanted to get into is the 5 levels of value in the stock market. And this can be equated to many different things in life. And, it's how urgently or how good of a value are we receiving? So we're going to go over this in detail. 5 levels of value, okay? Level 1, slow down. All right, this is like when your neighbor puts a couch on the curb, you slow down. You drive slow. You're looking at it. You're checking it out. Is it a nice couch? We don't know. They're throwing it out, okay? Level 2, stop the truck. This is when you're like, is that couch leather? It looks like it's in good shape. We might have to go check that thing out, okay? Stop the truck. We're going to go check it out. So we're going to deep dive a little bit, all right? Level 3, back up the truck. We're taking it home, baby. Back up the truck. We're going to load it up, This is a great buy rating, and this is where we do a lot of buys, all right? There's nothing wrong with entering in this level 3 of value here, back up the truck. This might be your entry point that we talked about, your half stake. And if it dips down a little bit more, that's when we get into this territory. All right. Number 4, sell the house. Sell the house. We are heavily convicted in this stock. We know it's a crazy value, and it's only a matter of time before that thing goes way up. All right. Leads us into level 5. What do we think level 5 is? All right, you already sold your house. Level 5, sell grandma's house. This is you're stealing change from the piggy banks. You're anything that you can do to buy up more shares of this stock, we're doing it. By any means necessary, we are acquiring said stock. Those are the 5 levels of value. So without further ado, 5 best buys in the stock market. Number 1, and this is not in order. I'm not saying that number 1 is the best buy and number 5 is the worst buy. These are just 5 stocks that I'm very bullish on. And who knows? Google could still go down in the near term. It could definitely go down in the near term. But look at this PE of 18. When you're talking a tech company and a mega cap like Google, and typically remember these tech companies, the S&P 500, their usual fair value PE is right around 26 to 28. So, hey, it has about a 50% return before it got to a healthy PE ratio. Google is a cash flow machine. They had a little bit of an iffy earnings report just because of that CapEx, but there was nothing out of the ordinary for Google. Their PE is below its 10-year median, and Google's year-over-year growth is still at pretty insane rates. We're talking like 20%. They just made a bunch of money on that SpaceX IPO. So they're in a very, very healthy spot. They killed earnings. They just got sold off, okay? They had a little bit too much CapEx. They raised that bottom line. I don't know how people didn't see that coming. And like we discussed in, I think, episode 3, was they didn't increase their CapEx. They increased their bottom line. So they said they were going to spend $110 billion to $150 billion. And then they said, we might spend $130 billion to $150 billion. Who uses the bottom line? Nobody. If your wife went to the mall and said, I'm going to spend between $100 and $150, you think she's spending $100? Absolutely not. You know she's spending $150. Nobody uses the bottom line, okay? I don't know how the stock market had such a big deal with that, but hey, whatever. This is how we get crazy buys. Google, I think, is a crazy buy. We put our money where our mouth is, and we came in and we bought a $40,000 Google position, okay? It's down a little bit today, and the market was kind of choppy today, so you can't expect any crazy results in some, one-day period. but we're basically flat. It was down a couple percent today. Let's see, yeah, 1.25%, and we're down a couple decimal points, so we're not worried about that at all. Google's a great buy, and I'm going to give it a 3. I'm going to give it a back the truck up value, okay? Where it sits right now at the 17 PE, it could go down in the near term. There is a little bit more room to pull back, but that's why we didn't sell Grandma's house yet. We're backing the truck up. We're taking it home, all right? Number 2, Meta. Okay, Meta had a very, very rough earnings report. Nothing out of the ordinary. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with Meta. They just had some legal fees and some severance pay that they're getting out of the way. Once that is out of the way and this AI build out starts to come to fruition and they start seeing some ROI on that, Meta's going to shoot through the roof. At a 22 PE, especially with a company like Meta who has such low margins, I would expect their fair value PE at this point to be in the mid to high 30s just because of the lack of overhead that Meta has and the moat over these social platforms. Meta's a cash flow machine. Remember, this is our largest position in the portfolio at the moment. We have $70-something thousand worth of Meta. It was previously Microsoft that was our biggest position. Now it's Meta. Honestly, is at a back the truck up stage right now. It does have room to fall, and the room it has to fall is the best example I would have is during the metaverse. All right, Mark spent a ton of money on the metaverse. Not a single person used it. I've never heard of anybody using the metaverse. This guy likes to spend money. He likes to spend money, likes to spend a lot of money. But listen to this. Zuckerberg is a much better investor than you or me. We know this, all right? The guy's right more than he's wrong, and Meta remains a powerhouse. It's our largest position, and I could easily see this doubling in the next year, easily. Once this AI spend slows down, they don't even really have to increase revenue. Once the CapEx lowers, their margins are going to be through the roof again, and we're going to be smooth sailing. So they get a back the truck up rating. SoFi. SoFi had a triple beat quarter. They beat on revenue. They beat on EPS. They raised guidance. Everything was great. For some reason, the stock sold off. All right, their current PE is 40, but they're compounding growth. They just hit a record of users on the platform. They're doing all sorts of crazy things in this banking space. And if you think about it, they're not reinventing the wheel, but they're stealing business from JP Morgan, from Bank of America, from these giant conglomerates that have customers for the next multiple decades. They're really just cherry picking off customers. And this younger generation, oftentimes you see, are going to online banking. The brick and mortar banks really provide no sort of advantage in today's society, especially, there not being a need for physical cash. SoFi, I believe, is going to be a great company. And I could see SoFi 10xing over the next decade. So getting in now, this is kind of, I wouldn't say sell the house in the near term, but we're definitely a back the truck up stock. This is something to load up on, especially under $20 is just a super crazy value. This is a stock that's been into the $30 range, been into the mid 30 range. So if it were to go back to those recent highs, you're talking a 70-80% return at this point, especially into that $15, $16 range. That's a sell the house range. $15 to $16 on SoFi is a sell the house, but you're going to keep grandma where she's at. Number 4, Celsius Holdings. This is a little bit of a dicey one, okay? The number 1 performing stock in the last decade. Does anybody know what it is? Monster Energy. Would you believe it? An energy drink company, okay? Because you have to remember, in the stock market, it's not about consistency of performance. It's about growth and the multiple of growth. For example, if a company's sales go from crummy to not so bad, you can catch a 50% upside, okay? Because it's priced at that crummy price range, and then it goes to not so bad. That could be 30, 50%. Those aren't companies that you want to hold for 3 decades, but it's definitely where you can get in and get out and make a lot of money. And that is not Celsius. Celsius does not have poor sales. They don't have poor revenue. They don't have poor margins. They're not acquiring everybody, but they did recently acquire Alani Nu and Rockstar. Alani Nu's big with the ladies. I'm sure if you got some ladies in your house, there's Alani Nu's flying around the fridge and pantry. So this is a company that has serious growth that's at a low multiple right now. 53 for a PE on a company that is probably about 1/40th of its overall potential. I mean, look at that market cap, $6 billion. That's not a ton of money. Celsius is a very recognizable brand name. They have a loyal customer base, and they just picked up Alani Nu and Rockstar. I think that this has a lot of potential. I'm going to say this is a stop the truck stock. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean you're loading the boat, you're backing the truck in, but it's definitely worth a second look, and it's definitely a stock that's worth picking up at least a small quantity of, because this is a stock that could easily 10x in a year's time, in 2 years' time. No one's to say that this company couldn't be a $60 billion company. That's a 10x multiple. They're also doing deals with the PepsiCo distribution, which is huge. PepsiCo is honestly the most dominant distributor of all time, right next to Coca-Cola. Celsius Holdings gets a stop the truck. Now, this is a very speculative play, okay? And I grouped two stocks together. So what you're looking at, this data that you're looking at, is Iron. And so Iron is actually formerly a Bitcoin miner. And just like SanDisk, okay? SanDisk really didn't have anything to do with anything until AI started to build out. So these Bitcoin mining places just had this crazy infrastructure, this crazy computing power. And now that the whole Bitcoin mining thing is over, they're just sitting on this, huge infrastructure of computing power. So they were able to rotate, especially with their clean energy. They're able to rotate and sort of start pleasing these customers that are looking for cloud space, infrastructure, all those sorts of things. So Iron, being at a very fair multiple right now, is a very good stock to start looking into. And so SMR is a little bit different of a play. SMR is a company. It's called NuScale Power, and they do modular nuclear reactors. So one thing about these data centers is they are an energy consumption machine. All right, they're stealing way too much power from local grids, all this sort of thing. So SMR develops a modular nuclear reactor where you're able to power these data centers and not be pulling off of the grid. So that could be huge. Now, SMR is the only one with federal licensing to build out these SMRs, and SMR being a small modular reactors is what that stands for. So they really do have a leg up in this competition. They have no sales right now, zero, zilch. They have nothing. Okay, this is a very speculative play. This is not you're not going to kick grandma out of her house for this one yet. It hasn't proved itself, but if it does, this is a 20, 30, 40x stock. I have never been able to be a part of those stocks, the Teslas, the SanDisk. So this is kind of my moonshot, the SMR. Iron, I did recently pick up some. I picked up about $5,000 worth of Iron. And I think that it honestly is just at a fair price. And they have a product that is very desirable at the moment, and that is computing infrastructure. So to summarize, we have Google, Meta, SoFi, Celsius Holdings, Iron. At the current moment, I don't see a stock out there that makes grandma homeless. All right, grandma's keeping her house. All right, we can't do that yet. However, we still do have a lot of stocks in a heavily, heavily discounted rate. Google, Meta, SoFi. Those are very proven companies. Okay, these are lower risk. I would say SoFi is probably a mid risk. Meta, Google, those are essentially, in my eyes, no-risk companies. I think they're right now at their current value. They're no-brainers to pick up. SoFi, I'm also very confident in. Celsius, I would say, is a little bit of a speculative buy. However, I'm still purchasing it in smaller quantities. And I think it's a stock that could easily double. Iron and SMR, those are our moon balls. All right, we're calling our shot, out here. We're saying, hey, we might strike out or we might hit a home run. That's one of them. So it's definitely not something you want to mortgage the house or make grandma homeless over. However, it's definitely worth taking a second look at and maybe doing some research. So thank you very much for watching. We had a crazy month, up $30,000. We traded sideways today, but that comes with the territory. We could have very easily pulled back $5,000 to $10,000, and it still would have been an absolutely explosive month. So to garner these results and to have taken profit at the right point, hopefully, maybe Microsoft runs up a little bit and we left some gains on the table, but that we still have 36 shares. So we still have about $20,000 worth of Microsoft in case it makes some sort of generational push. I would expect that to settle down a little bit and we're able to potentially even pick up some more. But this is the best result that could have happened. I can see this easily pushing up into the 150 range over this quarter. I think over the next year, it would not be unreasonable to see 250,000, especially if we're closely watching it and we've got our ducks in a row. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.